Okay, I think we are ready to go. So in this video, I'm going to go ahead and show you how I finish everything that I start. What are my systems? What's my setup inside of Notion for ensuring that when I start a project, when I start a training or an online course or membership or a goal, it's really applicable to any of that. How do I finish that? How do I make sure that that gets done? So many of us, there's actually a stat out there that says something along the lines of 93% of people don't finish the programs or courses or whatever that they sign up for. I think that's the one I saw from like higher education, but even for other stuff, the statistic is around 90%. So this is really kind of a look inside of things, inside of my systems in Notion. They really help me to be part of that 10%. This is something that I'm a little bit of a ninja at. I will totally admit that. I have a personality type, and actually I'm going to go ahead and make my video a little bit bigger to talk about this. I have a personality type based on the 4 tendencies by Gretchen Rubin called the upholder. And basically what that means is it means that if I say I want to do something, I will uphold that commitment to myself. I don't need any sort of outside accountability. It is important to me and an ingrained value and part of my personality that I will just uphold the commitments that I make to myself. That's definitely very beneficial to me in terms of using this system. But there are some other personality types based on Gretchen Rubin's 4 tendencies that I would definitely recommend you check out. I also have a companion blog post that's linked down below that I would also recommend you check out for some additional resources and some additional information on some of those other personality types based on that 4 tendencies quiz, so that you can kind of add in some little extra things so that you can benefit from this system as well. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to walk you through what I think are some of the core things, the core reasons why I'm able to finish everything that I start, some of my systems for doing that. I am recording this on my computer, which is not typically how I like to record my videos. The camera quality is just good. I should probably just clean my webcam one of these days. I don't know if that's going to help at all. But I don't usually like to record on here because the camera's not as good. But we're doing it so that I can do a screen share, and because my microphone's better on this computer. I am currently, my composter's running. So if you hear some weird noises in the background, that is a little bit about why. But let's go ahead. I'm going to shrink down my video again. I like to have the video in the upper right. I don't know why. I just do. But we're going to go ahead and we're going to take a look inside of my systems. And how I go about doing this. So first and foremost, the first thing I do when I am picking out a goal that I want to work toward is, let's actually go inside of my goal section. Actually, let's go inside of my life areas, and I can just go in. Most of my goals and my projects that I'm working on are in my business. So we'll just go inside of here. And if I am creating a new goal, I'll just go ahead and click new inside of my Notion template. This is all inside of my anti-burnout Notion digital planner. So if you're liking the systems you're seeing, I definitely recommend checking that out. When I add a new goal, I then just click this goal template button, and then I'll just give the goal a name. And the very, very first thing I do is I take what I call a transformation test. I'm not a big fan of SMART goal setting. I think there's a lot about SMART goal setting that's good. Like you'll notice I borrowed pieces of it here, but there's also a lot about SMART goal setting, in particular the realistic step, that I don't like. I think any goal is realistic so long as it has a good timeline attached to it. So I've kind of shifted things up to incorporate some different things, as well as to kind of shift the approach to realistic. So I ask myself, is the goal timely? Meaning, do I have a timeline attached to it? I'll also ask, is it relevant? Meaning, is it relevant to the stage I'm at in my life, the things that I'm working towards, so on and so forth? Is it actionable? And what I mean by this is it something that I specifically can take action toward? I think sometimes we set goals that frankly we have no control over. And it really needs to be something that I have control over being able to complete. So that's with this one. And then I say, is it non-negotiable? This, I think, is another important thing. Sometimes we just set goals very, very haphazardly of, oh, this would be nice to do. But until a goal is a non-negotiable, it's something that you're really committed to making happen, it's perhaps not a goal that we should be pursuing at that moment. Is it specific? So like you'll notice that when I go into some of my other goals here, oh, that one went away. Okay, I'll find my way back to it. But if I go back to some of my other goals here, it's, I want to complete this course. I want to get my website visitors to a certain place. I want to get my email list to a certain place. I want to take my business full time. I want to build my YouTube channel to a certain place. All of those things are very specific things that I can then go and work toward. I totally lost that goal. I shouldn't have clicked outside of it. It's okay. I know how to get back. There we go. There's my test goal. So we'll go ahead and open this guy up. So that's kind of what I mean by is it specific. We need to have a specific number, a specific thing that needs to be achieved. Get in better shape isn't a good goal because what the heck does that even mean? Does that mean losing weight? Does that mean being able to run a certain distance? Does that mean being able to lift a certain amount of weight? What does that mean? So we need to make our goals specific. Is it forward focused? And what I mean by this is, are we looking forward at something or are we trying to change something in the past? I find that goals, they can't be too focused on the past. They can't be too focused on what happened previously because that's kind of when I think we tend to get stuck in things. We tend to ruminate and ruminating stresses us out. Ruminating basically just means like unhealthy dwelling. But if we're ruminating on things in the past, that's not going to be a productive use of our time. It's not going to motivate us to move forward. So I think making sure that you are forward focused on something that you want to achieve or something that you want in the future, that's really important. Do you have ownership? This is kind of related to the one where is it actionable? I actually think I may have kind of mixed these up. When I say is it actionable, I think really what I'm meaning here is can you take specific actions toward achieving that goal? Because those become milestones and steps that you can take during the process. The next step, and then when we say do you have ownership, that's really about is it something that you particularly have control over being able to achieve? Is it relevant? This is really, is it something that is relevant? Oh, you know what? I ran into this before. This is not actually what it should be. Hold on. We're going to go into my actual transformation test document. Apparently, I need to go in and I need to change I need to change my template because the template is wrong. I've run into this twice now. There we go. This one should be, is it risky? And actually, I'm going to go in and I'm going to change the template right now. So you can kind of see how I go in and do that. I just go to the drop list for new. I click the 3 dots next to the template name. I click edit. And then when I go in here, I'm just going to change this to, is it risky? So now whenever that populates moving forward, it's going to populate correctly. So I go in and we'll open that test guy back up. Is it risky? This is where I like to do something a little bit different than SMART goal setting, because SMART goal setting would ask you, is it realistic? I don't think realistic goals are motivating. You know, if you want to be an Amazon bestseller, dumbing that down to, or kind of minimizing that goal to, oh, I just want to publish a book. That might be the first step. Like you might not be able to be an Amazon bestseller the first time you publish a book, but which one's more exciting? I want to publish a book or I want to be an Amazon bestseller? Like the Amazon bestseller is probably a heck of a lot more exciting. So I think it's important to kind of push yourself a little bit in your goals, because the goals that push you are the ones that are going to be more exciting for you to work toward. And then last but not least, is it measurable? Can I actually measure not only my progress toward that goal, because I think it's really important for a lot of us as high achievers to like feel like we are making good forward progress. That's important for us to be motivated to move forward, but it's also measurable so that you know when you completed it. So this is the first thing I do to really make sure that the goal I'm thinking of, you know, going after is a good goal for me to pursue. So transformation test is step 1. And then step 2 is really about deciding on a timeline that is practical. Like I said, I don't like setting a goal that is quote unquote realistic. I think any goal is realistic, but is the timeline practical to achieve it? And to give you some idea of kind of some of the timelines I've set for some of my different goals that I'm working toward, we'll focus on the ones at the top here that I'm actually actively working toward. I'm working on a copywriting course right now. I started working on that goal really not that long ago, about 5 days ago as I record this. And my goal is to work my way through that copywriting course by December 15th in 2 months. And part of how you can decide if your timeline is a good timeline is to work backward from when you want to finish and see if you feel like you can complete all of the steps and all of the if it's a lesson like this, can you complete all of the modules and to-do lists by then? You can see that I've broken things out. We'll get into that a little bit later. So it's, can you complete everything in that timeline? Is that going to be doable for you? The other way to do this is to think about how frequently you want to work on that goal. So like read 24 books this year. That's 2 books a month. That was a very practical timeline. In fact, I'm probably going to level this up next year because I'm already over that 24 books. and it's mid-October. So I could probably push this a little bit next year, and I am actually going to push it a little bit next year. You can see next year's goal is to read 30 books. So I'm pushing that a little bit. My goals for getting to 3,500 visitors per month or 3,000 subscribers. These timelines are probably a little bit ambitious, but that's okay. Ambitious timelines aren't always a bad thing. I think what we just kind of need to step into if we are going to set an ambitious timeline is we can't be a perfectionist about it, which is actually a tip that we're going to get into a little bit later. So that's the first big thing we need to think about when it comes to setting our goals and setting timelines for our goals, is deciding if that timeline is practical. The other important thing you need to think about is the other commitments that you have in your life, taking those other commitments into consideration. And that's why I actually think it's really important to have a master calendar. The calendar is going to look a little bit lighter than it actually is because I turned off my tutoring calendar, so you can't see my student names. But I think it's really important to have a master calendar so then you can see everything that you've got going on, including if you're a sports fan, including putting in the games that you want to watch. You know, my calendar actually looks relatively light the next week, but then the week after that, I've got stuff for my memberships just about every single day. I've got a lot of personal commitments those particular weeks, and I actually have 1, 2, 3, 4 speaking engagements and workshops over the course of like 5 days. So I know that I have those things coming up and I'm gearing up for those things. So I'm taking those things into consideration when I'm setting my deadlines for other things. I am also taking things into consideration. I'm going to go ahead and jump back into my Notion. I am also taking into consideration my tasks, and how I'm doing that is I'm looking at my task manager. So you can see I have a lot of stuff going on these particular 2 weeks here. It lightens up as the end of the year goes out. So that is going to be, or at the end of the month goes out. So that's something I'm also taking into consideration. Like, I am not going to add any more speaking engagements in early November because I've already got 4 happening. That's already a lot. If I had speaking engagements come up at the beginning of December, that's more practical. That's more doable. So it's taking into consideration your calendar, but also taking into consideration your to-do list. I think both of those things are really important when it comes to picking a practical deadline. So let's go ahead and jump back over to the goals view. Oh, wait, no, we want to go here. Okay, so we'll go ahead and jump back over to this goals view. So that's important to set a practical deadline. So, and you got to kind of look at how I set deadlines for some of the different things that I'm working on and kind of how I decide this. And I would just kind of add to this, it's really important because what it does is it sets you up for success to make sure that you are not picking a timeline that is completely impractical from the get-go. I think this is really important for people who are high achievers and very perfectionistic, because if you set an overly ambitious, impractical timeline from the get-go, all it's going to do is frustrate you. All it's going to do is piss you off, and you're going to quit. So sometimes that is the most important thing, is just setting a practical deadline. And again, just to illustrate this, if we're looking at this copywriting course here, I went through and I distributed all of the tasks and all the things I need to get done. I want to complete it by December 15th. But if you actually look, that deadline is 2 weeks after when I actually finish up the tasks in this actual project here. We're going to talk about breaking stuff out in tasks in just a second, but like, I gave myself basically like a 2.5 week cushion to getting this thing done. That's kind of what I mean by making it practical. Like, in actuality, I wanted to finish by the end of the year, but I decided to bump it up to December 15th because that'd be great to be able to get through the program before Christmas. So it's still practical though, because as you can see with how I've distributed things out over the course of the next couple months, I'm still giving myself 2 weeks of buffer. So that's something to kind of think about with your timelines here. So set your realistic timeline, whatever it might be. And inside of this template, you can see I have a place to pick whatever my target deadline is. So let's say my target deadline is the end of January 2023. But then there's also a place inside of here to say when it is achieved and also to say when the goal was set. So if I want to say I set it on October 19th, cool, but I can say when it's achieved. So I'm basically leaving space for it being okay if I don't achieve it by my target deadline. If I were to achieve it on February 15th instead of January 31st, honestly, I probably wouldn't be super upset with that. And I'm kind of setting myself up for success by just kind of allowing for the target deadline and the date I actually achieve the thing to be different. So that's another part of this template that I think kind of just allows for that flexibility. So the next important tip I have for really making sure you finish everything you start is to break down your project, your course, whatever the goal might be, into subtasks. Like I kind of already mentioned, there is a milestones deadline thing. There's a milestones thing inside of this template. And this milestones piece is really, really important. I'm going to go ahead and hide this actually so that it all fits. There we go. The milestones piece is really, really important because this is where you are breaking things down and setting targets for those individual actions. I think one of the big things a lot of people do wrong when it comes to to-do lists is they put their projects in their to-do list instead of the subtasks for those projects. To give you an idea of how this looks, we can look back into my copywriting course that I'm taking. I went through, unfortunately, I think me and this person who runs the course just think very similarly. One of her very first modules had breaking down the course into daily actions and having you schedule them out, which is totally how I think. Her and I are clearly the same person. But I went in and I wrote out and I scheduled out all of those target deadlines inside of my Notion calendar. And you can see some of the target deadlines don't always match up with the date that it's completed. Sometimes it gets completed a day earlier. I love how I didn't actually put a date completed for this one, but that happened on Saturday. That also happened on Saturday. I actually know this because this just happened, but I'm literally breaking it out and I'm scheduling everything out as well. And as I'm scheduling things out, I'm taking into consideration what the day of the week is. October 20th is a Thursday. Generally, Thursdays are pretty light days for me. And then I only have a couple little things happening on the 21st because I'm actually going to be at a conference on the 21st. So again, taking into consideration what's going on. Days that I don't tend to put too much are Wednesdays, because Wednesdays tend to be pretty busy days for me inside of my business and inside of my day job. So I'm taking that into consideration as I'm scheduling things out. Now hers, it was very easy because she literally broke everything out. Let's take a look at something that maybe isn't as easy to break out. I don't necessarily want to go into financial stuff right now, but let's take a look at, some of these goals. So my website visitors being to 3,500 people per month. So with this one, the milestones that I'm looking at hitting are 750, 1,500, 2,250, 3,500. And I've got target deadlines for when I want to achieve those things. And a couple of those things are already achieved. So that's kind of a way you could do it for a goal like a website visitors to a certain place. Another thing that you could do here is, or something that I'll then go in and do is, let's say I want to check in on my website visitor stats. I love how I spelled visitors wrong in every single one of these. Okay, just a couple of them. But I can go in and I can add specific tasks. So let's say every Friday, I want to go in and I want to check the stats for my business. I actually already have that as a part of my weekly review. And you will see if I go into my task manager, I have my weekly review on every Saturday. And that is a part of my weekly review. That's just something that I do inside of my weekly review. So I'm scheduling those check-ins. And if I have anything come up that I want to try or anything I want to do differently, I can schedule that in as a task as well, maybe even a repeating task. So those are how your benchmarks would look inside of a goal kind of like this one. For let's look at the one that was read 24 books this year. What I actually did with this one is I just went in and can we unfilter it? Yeah, let's unfilter it. What I actually did is I went in and I just listed out book 1, book 2, book 3, book 4. And then as I read books, I went in and I put what book it was that I read in here. And then I started keeping track of the target deadlines and whatnot. I only recently moved this goal in here, so not everything is actually being tracked inside of here. Now, the cool thing about this milestone guy, and you may have already noticed this, and this is actually another of my tips, is to kind of gamify things to keep you motivated. And one of the ways in which I gamify things is I have this little progress tracker up here at the top. And basically what this is automatically tracking and automatically keeping track of for me is the percent of my goals, milestones that I have completed. So in this situation, I'm going to go ahead and actually refilter these. Save. Completed, checked. Interesting. I love how it's not fixing itself. But anyways, you can see when I go back over to my goals view, I'm 22% of the way through my copywriting course. So if we go in here, that kind of makes sense. because I have only checked off like a quarter of the activities inside of here. For my read 24 books this year, I have checked off every single task inside of here. What the heck, man? Checked. Oh, I want unchecked. Ha, that's why. So everything's checked off inside of here. So that goal is 100% complete. If I go over to the 3,500 visitors per month, I'm only 50% of the way through that goal because I'm right around 1,500. If I go to my stress management certification, again, I go in, I break it out by lesson, and then I try to complete 2 lessons every week inside of this certification. So I should be done around Thanksgiving. And this is showing that I am 50% through this, 57%, through this, so on and so forth. So as I start working on a goal, like some of these goals I am actively working on, some of them I'm not, because I plan my goals out pretty far in advance. I'm going to do a video in the future where I talk about how to make a personal growth plan like this one. But that's kind of a way in which to keep yourself motivated, is to basically just gamify your goal, give you something that makes you feel like you were making that forward progress. Otherwise, it's really, really easy to lose track of how far you've come and really just look at how far you have to go. So we've talked about the importance of having a practical timeline to achieve something. We've talked about the importance of breaking down your projects and the things that you're working on into subtasks. And then I didn't necessarily say it, but it's kind of implied. When I do break my tasks down into subtasks, kind of like I've done inside of this copywriting course, I obviously, yes, we can leave that. Sorry, that's something putting my tabs to sleep guy does. We'll close those. But once you break things out into subtasks, then you assign your target deadline. And you'll see, just like I had up here with the actual overall goal itself, I have a target deadline and then I have an actual date completed. So again, you're leaving basically room for yourself to be imperfect. And for my imperfectionists out there, this is a really important thing. You're basically planning for your imperfection from the get-go. You are acknowledging that you are probably going to be imperfect toward achieving this goal from the get-go. And that is fine. This is perhaps not a great example of this because I just started this. So I'm like super gung-ho on this goal right now. But let's actually look at one of the certifications that I'm working on right now. I'm big like on lifelong learning and whatnot. But if we were to look at this, let's go in. We want to do just temporarily clear this. This is probably a better example. Like this one, I completed 4 days later. This one, I completed almost 2 weeks later. This one, I completed 1 week later. I kind of fell behind for a period of time on working on this certification. And that's okay because I still got it done. I was still able to see this progress bar ticking up. So it kept me motivated to continue to work through it. And that's like the most important thing. So, and then last but not least, gamify it. Is there anything you can do to kind of keep yourself motivated? Can you do a sort of progress tracker like I've got in here? And then that can help you to make sure that you're staying motivated as you work toward them. So those are my tips. Those are the big things that I'm working toward, or that I highly recommend when it comes to finishing what you start every single time. And I think it's just important to kind of take it all in one picture so that, again, you're not overloading yourself and you're leaving room for those imperfections. The last thing I will say specific to this particular template is one of the kind of glitches inside of this template is the milestones don't automatically populate inside of my task manager. So how I've kind of worked around this is I've gone in and inside of my task manager, it's actually on the same day as my weekly review, I have a reminder for myself to check in with my goals and plug all of the deadlines into my task calendar. So basically what I do is every week after I do my weekly review, I go in to my goals tab, and this calendar here shows me all of the deadlines I have coming up and all of the things that I want to complete coming up. And I will go in and each week I will plug in the tasks for that week into my task manager so that I don't forget about them. Sometimes I do it all ahead of time. Like that's actually what I did with my complete my copywriting course. Actually, as I was making this, I plugged in all of these milestone dates into my task manager. So they're already there. And then it makes it so that they're not out of sight, out of mind. I'm staying on top of them. That was actually one of the problems that happened as I was working toward that certification, and I kind of got off track. Part of the reason I got off track is because it was out of sight, out of mind. Those lessons that I was aiming to work on a particular day, I wasn't seeing them because they weren't showing up in my task manager. So this is something that I've been doing to just like stay on top of my tasks. So this might be massively too type A for you. This might not be how your brain works, but if you are type A, if you are somebody who loves your planning system, you're very high achieving, and this is really important to you to finish everything that you start, I highly recommend going through these steps. If I went through them a little bit too fast in the video, again, check out the companion blog post down below where I walk you through all of my steps with screenshots. I'll also link this video in the companion blog post. But let me know if you've got any comments. Let me know if you do something similar. I love to meet other very type A folks like myself so that we can all bond over our type A-ness. But if you're loving what you're seeing, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.